In the distant past, when the world was still young and the islands of Zanzibar were lush with untouched forests, there lived a creature that struck both awe and fear into the hearts of all who knew of it. This was the Zanzibar Leopard, a creature of mystery and legend, whose presence was both revered and dreaded by the people of the islands. The leopard was not like any other animal in the forest. Its coat was a deep golden hue, dotted with spots as dark as the midnight sky, and its eyes gleamed with an intelligence that seemed almost human. Some said that the leopard was not just an animal but a spirit, a guardian of the forests, with powers that could influence the very fabric of life on the island. The people of Zanzibar had lived alongside the leopard for as long as anyone could remember. They spoke of it in hushed tones, sharing tales of its cunning and strength, and of the strange occurrences that seemed to follow in its wake. The elders would gather the children around the fires at night, telling stories of how the leopard could vanish into thin air, reappearing miles away in the blink of an eye, or how it could call upon the winds to mask its presence, making it invisible to even the sharpest of eyes. But with time, as the human population grew and the forests began to shrink, the relationship between the people and the leopard began to change. Where once there had been respect and a careful distance, there was now fear and mistrust. The leopard, driven by its instincts to protect its dwindling territory, began to come into conflict with the people. Livestock would disappear in the dead of night, their cries echoing through the dark, and the blame would always fall on the leopard. One such night, a powerful storm swept across the islands. The wind howled through the trees, and the rain fell in sheets, drenching the land. In the midst of the storm, a small village near the edge of the forest was in turmoil. The villagers had lost several goats and chickens in the past few weeks, and tensions were running high. They feared that the leopard had grown bolder, that it was no longer content to stay hidden in the forest. As the storm raged on, the villagers huddled in their homes, listening to the wind and the distant rumble of thunder. But then, through the noise of the storm, they heard something else, something that sent a chill down their spines. It was a low, guttural growl, followed by the unmistakable cry of a goat. The leopard had struck again. The village chief, an old man with a deep connection to the land, knew that something had to be done. The leopard could not be allowed to continue its attacks, but he also knew that this was no ordinary animal. The leopard was a creature of legend, and it would not be so easily dealt with. The chief gathered the villagers in the center of the village, their faces lit by the flickering light of the torches. "We cannot continue to live in fear," he said, his voice steady despite the storm. "The leopard is a powerful creature, but we are many, and together, we can protect our homes. But we must be careful, for this is not just a beast, it is a spirit, and we must approach it with respect." The villagers nodded in agreement, though fear still gripped their hearts. The chief selected a group of the strongest and bravest among them to form a hunting party. They would venture into the forest at first light, when the storm had passed, to track the leopard and drive it away from the village. The storm finally subsided as dawn broke, casting a pale light over the drenched land. The hunting party, armed with spears and bows, set out into the forest. The air was thick with tension as they moved silently through the trees, their senses heightened, every sound making their hearts race. They followed the tracks of the leopard, which were easy to find in the wet earth, leading them deeper into the forest where the trees grew taller and the undergrowth thicker. As they ventured further, the forest seemed to close in around them, the air growing heavy with an eerie silence. The hunters exchanged uneasy glances, but they pressed on, determined to find the creature that had caused them so much fear. They moved carefully, knowing that the leopard could be anywhere, watching them from the shadows. After hours of searching, they came upon a clearing, and there, in the center, stood the Zanzibar leopard. It was larger than any leopard they had ever seen, its muscles rippling beneath its golden coat, its eyes fixed on them with an intensity that made them freeze in their tracks. The leopard did not move, but there was something in its gaze that held them in place, a sense of power that went beyond the physical. The chief, who had led the hunters into the forest, stepped forward, raising his spear. "We do not wish to harm you," he called out, his voice firm but respectful. "But you have taken from us, and we cannot allow this to continue. We ask you to leave this place and trouble us no more." For a long moment, the leopard did nothing. It simply stared at the chief, its eyes unblinking. Then, slowly, it began to move, circling the clearing, its movements fluid and graceful. The hunters watched, their grips tightening on their weapons, ready to strike if necessary. But the leopard did not attack. Instead, it stopped at the edge of the clearing, turning to face them one last time. There was a sadness in the leopard's eyes now, as if it understood the inevitability of what was to come. It let out a low, mournful growl, a sound that resonated deep within the hearts of the hunters, filling them with a sense of sorrow and regret. And then, with a final glance, the leopard turned and disappeared into the forest, its golden coat blending seamlessly with the shadows. The hunters stood there in silence, the weight of what had just happened settling over them. They had come to drive the leopard away, but instead, they felt as though they had lost something precious, something that could never be replaced. The chief lowered his spear, his heart heavy with the knowledge that the leopard would not return, that the balance between the people and the land had been irrevocably altered. The hunting party returned to the village, but they did not celebrate. There were no cheers of victory, no songs of triumph. Instead, they spoke of what they had seen, of the leopard's eyes, of the sadness they had felt. The villagers listened, understanding that something important had been lost, something that went beyond the loss of livestock or the fear of attacks. As the years passed, the legend of the Zanzibar leopard grew. The forest continued to shrink, and sightings of the leopard became rarer and rarer until it was said that the last of the Zanzibar leopards had vanished, leaving only stories behind. But the people of Zanzibar never forgot the lessons they had learned. They knew that the leopard had been more than just an animal, it had been a symbol of the wild, untamed spirit of the island, a reminder of the delicate balance between man and nature. And so, the legend lived on, passed down from generation to generation, a tale of mystery, of fear, of respect, and of loss. The Zanzibar leopard became a ghost of the past, its presence felt in the whispers of the wind, in the rustle of the leaves, and in the hearts of those who remembered. The island itself seemed to mourn the loss, its forests quieter, its nights darker, as if the spirit of the leopard still roamed the land, watching, waiting, the reminder of what had once been and what could never be again.